So I'm getting this to go live on our page. I'm hoping I'm doing it right.
Excellent. Okay, I will be right back. I'm just going to
Awesome.
mute myself. I've been in a conference for the last 2 hours.
Okay, it's live on Facebook too.
I'm still in the process of trying to I'm here with you on my phone and I'm transferring to my computer as soon as that goes through. Here it goes.
Okay.
There it is. Okay, hanging up this one. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great.
I can hear you, and I just muted myself so you don't hear me multitasking here.
Cool. No worries. I see some familiar faces. I see Lynn. I see Rabbi Mac. I see Judy. Hi.
We are on FaceTime Live, just so you know, so people on our page only.
Great. And I'm going to just have some background noise. I'm going to get my goofy headset. And that'll make it easier to hear me. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Good. I look like a Martian, but these are noise canceling headphones, and I think the audio quality is better when I use them on these Zoom calls.
I do the same thing when I'm running a meeting, so I get it. Especially when you have two offices running at the same time in your home, right?
Exactly. Well, now we're going to be doing home distance learning for my two kids, and so we have to find quiet space or noise canceling headphones. Either way works. I see Jill joining. Hey, Jill. Thanks for being here. Judy or Rabbi, let me know when you want us to begin and we can begin.
I think you can begin. I think people may sign on. I think we've given 5 minutes. So I think we're ready.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you. And thank you to Judy and to Rabbi Mac for organizing this and for inviting me to do this. It's really a privilege and something I feel that I can help contribute back at this time for all of us. Since there aren't tons of us in the room, maybe we could just go around and give a quick introduction. Everybody can go around and introduce themselves. I am John Torgan. I'm your speaker today, and you'll hear a lot more about me. Maybe I'll call on others to say hello. Jill, you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute. I see you too there, Jim.
Husband Jim is here. Today's Jim's birthday.
Happy birthday, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you. I'll be in and out because people are giving me their whatever it is that people give birthday people.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
But we care very much about the environment. Rabbi Mac, you have to teach me how I can do what you're doing.
Right. Watch out. Watch
I
out,
feel
Sarah.
like we need a little levity. I know.
The
I don't
background,
know. I'm pretty scared.
you know how you do
Can
it,
do a
Jill?
little.
Roll your mouse over your own picture, and where you see the three dots, you can
Oh, yeah.
You can choose a virtual
background.
background. See, look, it's
Sitting on the lawn in front of the temple. Can you see
Nice.
that?
Okay. So
So, this is as close as I get
edit
to.
profile picture. Okay.
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
it?
yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, actually,
How do you
I
get a
think
new picture?
No,
You
you know
go
what?
under, it's the arrow next to your stop video.
Stop video. There it is.
And
Yeah,
then
choose
you
a
go
virtual
to choose virtual backgrounds. And you can add your own picture or you can use one of their backgrounds.
Okay. Oh, I'm so excited.
Stop it.
I've been on the beach. I've been everywhere.
Yeah. No, I have reminders of my favorite places behind me. Here's Block Island,
Oh, that's beautiful.
the next best thing.
Wow, this is unbelievable.
So where do you find that? I don't see that.
Oh, next to your stop video, don't turn on your stop video, unstop it. And there's a little arrow that goes up, go to that,
Okay,
and then
where's
choose
that?
virtual background.
I see start video. Is that it? I don't see a stop.
Start your video. That's
Okay.
that, so we see you again. And then right next to it is a little arrow that's going up. You see that next to the video camera?
Next to the video camera.
On the bottom where you just started and stopped.
This is with our picture, or we don't
Oh.
want to detract. We'll
Oh,
figure.
I see it.
Okay.
Yep.
You go choose virtual background.
Your screen sharing.
Okay, wait.
Oh, no,
start.
stop that.
No worries.
We're
Stop
cutting
this.
into your time, John. So
Okay, yeah, let's go.
I'll
Yeah,
start.
go
You know, and we can all introduce ourselves, but in due course, because I want this to be a dialogue. I don't want to lecture to you all today, but let me just introduce myself a little bit and what I wanted to talk about today. About 3 years ago, I was invited by Rabbi Laufer and my supervisor at work, the New England director, Terry Sullivan, to lead a dialogue about Judaism and the environment at Temple Torah Israel in East Greenwich. I mean, it was 4 years ago. So I did a little bit of background on that to just, for, you know, I definitely am not an expert in the Torah. So leading a Torah study or dialogue about the Jewish side of environmental ethics isn't an area of specialty for me. I only speak from the heart. And as a person who came up as a, you know, from kindergarten at Temple Bethel through my bar mitzvah, and then now coming back as a member of the band and participating and having both of my kids in the religious school. That's my Jewish background, but my nature background, I think, is what you're all interested in hearing about, and how we see nature and the role that nature plays in our lives and in our hearts and our spirituality, and the strength that we can all derive from nature, especially at times like this, in such challenging times. And so it's a great opportunity to think about that and to have dialogue with all of you about not just my own story, which I'm going to tell, but how you all come to this in your own minds, and how it aligns with your spirituality or your Jewish identity. When I did this seminar about 4 years ago, I did just some background reading on it and found that there's a lot in the Torah, and there's a lot in Jewish readings and texts about the environment and about the earth, and our sacred obligation to repair the world. Tikkun Olam is sort of a guiding mitzvah that points out that all of creation includes all of nature and people, and that anywhere in in nature at any scale, whether we're talking about, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge or Yellowstone Park, or the crocuses coming up outside our windows in our flower beds in the backyard. You can see the divine in nature, and you can find strength and inspiration from nature at every scale, and even at the smallest scale. It doesn't have to be, the National Wildlife Refuge, although those places are grand and inspiring. That, to me, thinking about nature and thinking about creation and where God is really the same thing, that it's everywhere in nature and it's everywhere where you look for it. And, when we think about and this is, I'm just going to start with the Torah piece, and I'm going to move quickly into the personal story, but that when we hear references to the wilderness, a lot of the time in the Torah, it's thinking of nature as distant and apart from people, and as this wild, untamed, inhospitable, even hostile thing. And that's not at all how I see it. In so many ways, I just see it as intrinsic to life, that everything that life depends on is about nature, air, water, land. And so that part of our Jewish identity involves a sacred obligation to look after those things for ourselves and for future generations. And so that is a guiding star for me and a guidepost for me. But that's not how I came to this. The way I came to this is that I grew up in Providence, going to Bethel Sunday School and Hebrew School. And some of you know my dad, retired physician from Providence. And he and I started when I was about 3 years old, going fishing on a boat that he had out on Narragansett Bay. And the boat he kept in Warwick originally, and then later on we got a summer cottage in Narragansett. We kept the boat down there when I turned about 8 years old. And these were just the most amazing memories that I had from earliest part of my life, just going out on Narragansett Bay and out on the ocean with my dad and fishing and seeing the incredible bounty of life that we have right outside of our homes and off the coast of Rhode Island, and seeing whales and giant tuna and sharks and ocean sunfish and seals and just incredible seabirds and wildlife that I never even, that it would be hard to imagine that they're so close, but yet they're right here in Rhode Island. And at the same time, being in Providence, seeing that that the river that ran through Providence, the Seekonk River and the Providence River, when I was a kid, was horribly polluted and really a dump. It stank, and in most places it was not accessible. There were rotting tank farms and scrap yards and barbed wire, and you couldn't get to the river if you wanted to in a lot of those areas, and you wouldn't want to in a lot of those areas. And as many of you recall, the river that ran through downtown Providence, what's now Water Place, the confluence of the Moshassuck and Asquatucket, and up until I was in about high school, so I'm 50 now, just to give you the time scale, was underground. It was paved over and culverted underneath the city of Providence, and where it discharged outside the Fox Point hurricane barrier, it stank, and you could see, grease balls and plastic and trash and sewage. It was, horrible, really horrible. And I remember even at a young age wanting to go down onto the shore in the river and turn over rocks and pick up jellyfish and chase crabs and stuff. And I remember being told, no, you can't do that. This water's polluted. You can't touch it. You can't go anywhere near it. It's bad. And that struck me as fundamentally bad and terrible and wrong, because this beautiful river, even that we had in our city, was not something that you could use or enjoy. When I was 12 years old, I got my first job, and I was spending summer down in Narragansett. I would wander down I would walk from our place to the Galilee docks, and I would watch the fishing boats come in, the charter fishing boats, and see what they had. And so I was invited to become a boat washer. So I went scrub these boats down when they came back for about $5 a day. And and loved it. I was making more money than any of the other 12-year-olds, but I didn't mind getting bloody and slimy, and the gulls would follow me home after the end of work. That job turned into a job as a mate on the boat. Actually, my second mate job was chum boy. I was the person who ladled bait over the side for the paying customers to attract fish to the boat. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And it was just incredible to have the opportunity to go out into that part of the world and see the bounty of the ocean right off of Rhode Island. And I did that for a few years, for a few summers. And then starting in high school, I started working out on Block Island at the hotels on Block Island. And I was on Block Island, and I did that through summers through college, and got a little taste of the whole conservation movement that began on Block Island in the it begun earlier, but really took off in the 1980s when Block Island was making decisions about how to develop or not to develop the island. I did environmental biology in college, and I worked for a private consulting group for about a year in upstate New York and in Michigan, doing flow studies on rivers and fishery studies on rivers. Then I came back to Rhode Island in 1992, late in 92. And then in early 93, I picked up an internship with the organization Save the Bay, teaching marine studies to kids on a University of Rhode Island research vessel, which was supposed to be a 3-month internship. And I ended up staying at Save the Bay for 18 years. And so I really grew up in so many ways with Save the Bay, where I served as the organization's baykeeper, which meant I was out on a boat, out on the water, looking after, doing water quality tests and responding to pollution incidents and helping citizens in different communities navigate challenges related to the environment, development projects, and other wastewater and other pollution problems or threatened pollution problems. So that became my career, a career that I never knew I would be able to have, but feel really blessed to have had that opportunity. In 2011, the Nature Conservancy in Rhode Island. The Nature Conservancy, that my present employer is a worldwide organization. We have about 4,000 staff. We have chapters that serve each of the 50 states, and we're in 79 countries around the world, and we all work collaboratively. The Rhode Island chapter was established in 1989. The Nature Conservancy had been doing land protection in Rhode Island since the late 1960s out of a regional office in Boston. But in the 80s, Block Island was named by then the national organization, now the worldwide organization, as one of the last great places in nature. And they began this campaign to save Block Island and invested a lot of money and a lot of organizational power into conservation on Block Island. And so the Rhode Island chapter of the Nature Conservancy was founded and served Block Island primarily, and did it was almost entirely land protection, public and private, creating preserves or setting aside land and working farms and other areas for permanent conservation. So either buying that or getting donations of land or the rights to develop, development rights to land, that we would take the development rights so that it couldn't be developed. And the Nature Conservancy grew in Rhode Island from that time, primarily as a land protection organization, working with the state and other partners to set aside land and to protect land. In the early 2000s, the Nature Conservancy started to think about ocean and coastal conservation and marine conservation. And in 2011, the Rhode Island chapter created a new position, which is called Director of Ocean and Coastal Conservation, serving from Rhode Island, but working with the 4 states, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, for all of Southern New England, and thinking about how to do a better job with water quality, with river restoration, with fisheries, with other aspects of management in rivers and tidal waters where the Nature Conservancy had never really been. And so I got that job as Director of Ocean and Coastal Conservation. And after 18 years with Save the Bay, gratefully and respectfully moved on to the Nature Conservancy, and then served in that role of Ocean and Coastal Conservation Director for about 5 years. And then in 2016, had the opportunity, we reorganized and restructured, and so my boss at the time, who was the Rhode Island director, became the New England director. Terry Sullivan, I know some of you know him. I know you know him, Nancy. And he's also a wise Jew. You wouldn't know from his name, Terry Sullivan, but he is. And so I had the opportunity to take over as the executive director of the Rhode Island chapter in January of 2017. So I've served in that role. So it's supervising a Rhode Island team of about 30 people. We have offices in Providence and on Block Island, and we are working in all aspects of conservation throughout the state, and then in partnership with our other chapters and business units around the region and around the world. And it's no longer really just about land protection. It's evolved to be about ocean and coastal conservation, about rivers. It's land, water, and people and cities. Working on climate change has become a emerging top global priority for the organization, and ways to address climate change, both in terms of carbon emissions and policy and regulations around that, energy, and also what we call resilience, but using nature-based strategies to conserve and restore and improve the condition of land in a way that will inoculate against sea level rise and other manifestations of climate change. So working in resilience and restoration is a really big part of what we do now. And as even since I've come aboard, our role has grown so that we do a lot of partnerships with state and federal agencies, serving as a local partner to coordinate, project manage, and execute large restoration, conservation, and environmental infrastructure projects for the state. So that's become a growing area of our work. Unfortunately, as funding for state and federal environmental programs has diminished, capacity has diminished in the state, and so we've been able to step in a way that that brings new capacity. We help raise private money to do those projects and to make the state and other partners eligible for other sources of funding to do more and to do bigger things for Rhode Island and for the environment. And so that's what I've been involved in. We have about, I think we have conserved about 35,000 acres in Rhode Island to date. We have about 10,000 that we own and operate. We have 20 nature preserves in Rhode Island that we are responsible for, accessible to the public. So that's that piece of it. In my personal journey, when I started at Save the Bay in 1993, the river that ran through Providence was still totally disgusting. And, big part of what my job there was thinking about how to clean that up and what that means to clean it up and make it healthier and more accessible for people to use and enjoy. And so I was part of a movement that reduced the sewage pollution to Narragansett Bay by more than 50%, that reduced the nutrient pollution from sewage, the nitrogen from sewage that causes algal blooms and low oxygen and foul water quality. We were able to dramatically reduce nitrogen by more than half in the period from around between 2004 and 2012. Some of you may remember there was this massive die-off of fish, a fish kill in East Greenwich Bay in 2003, and I was in responding to that, used that as an opportunity to highlight the challenge of land-based sewage nutrient pollution getting into the bay and turning it green and making the fish die and clams suffocate and all that stuff. So we were able to, because that was such a polarizing, galvanizing event for the state, galvanizing really more than polarizing. It was a watershed moment where people realized that we were unsustainable. We needed to get the sewage out. So reducing nitrogen. The other thing we did is, as a state, the sewer agency, the Bay Commission, built this giant 3-mile long deep rock tunnel called the CSO, or Combined Sewer Overflow Tunnel. That is now, it starts at Fields Point, and it's about 900 feet under the ground, and it extends almost to the State House, to the Providence Place Mall. Before 2008, every time it rained more than a half inch in 24-hour period, sewers would overflow, and the mixture of sewage and stormwater would flow untreated into the bay and into the rivers from at 80 something different pipes. That was until 2008. And so that would bring everything that was on the road into the river, and it would foul swimming beaches and shellfish areas all the way down the bay. And so we advocated for, and ultimately were successful in getting that the sewer agency, the Narragansett Bay Commission, to build this tunnel to capture all of that sewage and stormwater, and then with the wastewater that was coming into the treatment plants, to use advanced wastewater treatment strategies to do a much higher level of cleaning the wastewater before it was discharged, and actually removing the nitrogen that used to go out unabated into the bay. And so those two things, I think, in many ways, there's a lot that happened that improved the bay's water quality, but the sewer tunnel, the CSO tunnel, and the nitrogen limits at wastewater plants really turned a switch. And almost immediately following that, after 2010, we started to see dramatic improvement in water quality, the return of pollution-sensitive marine life, and the restoration and revitalization of the northern part of Narragansett Bay. And people are fishing and they're enjoying it. So I'll show you this photo. This is my dad, and that's Tony the barber, who used to be on Hope Street for a zillion years. Tony the barber was a legend in my family. He cut 4 generations of Torgan men's hair. My grandfather, my father, me, and then my son, before he passed at the ripe age of 94. And he worked right up until then. But Tony was one of my dad's patients, and he taught my dad in the early 1960s to fish in Narragansett Bay. And Tony was an amazing fisherman and elegant man, and he knew so much about nature. He knew that if the moon was in a certain phase, and if you were to go by a certain rock at a certain tide, you were likely to find a big striped bass. And so this photo was in the Providence Journal in 1968, the year before I was born, and it hung in the TV room in my house, in the den in my house growing up. And I would look at that and say, "Wow, Dad, that's an amazing fish. I want to do that. Can we do that?" And Dad would say, "Yeah, unfortunately, we don't get those anymore. They don't come back to Narragansett Bay anymore. It's too polluted and they've been overfished." And that struck me as wrong then. So I'll have to pull up I will find this photo for you, which is the end of that story. But one of my greatest joys now is that Dad, who's going to be 87 this month, and I now go out together right in the shadow of downtown Providence, like right off of, you may know where the Squantum Club is, or near Save the Bay, near Fields Point, and we're catching fish like that together now. So it's like incredible. Something that I never imagined would happen in my lifetime is now possible because of the investments that we've made in the conservation that took place, and all of the people that contributed to that outcome. And to me, it is so gratifying to be able to share that across generations now with my son and daughter and my wife, and to still be able to do this with my dad, and to see that this is possible. And it's a rare success story in environmental stewardship, and it's one that I don't think gets told enough from the perspective of Rhode Island, because it is a Providence and it's a Rhode Island success story. And it's one that gives me a lot of hope and inspiration for some of the other greater challenges that we face. As I work on the climate issues, especially, we hear a lot of the same kind of stuff that we heard when we started this journey in the Bay, which is it's too far gone. Making the changes that would that would be meaningful are going to be too hard, they're going to be too expensive, too disruptive to make a difference, that we don't have clear science that shows what's going to happen if we make these investments and improvements. And I can share that early in my Save the Bay journey, I heard that same kind of stuff. And people said things like, don't bother with Providence River, stick to Newport and Narragansett, where there's a chance still to save it, and just write this off. It's trashed and gone. And, I'm so thankful now that we heard but did not heed those voices, that those voices were wrong. That not only did the things they worried about were going to happen not happen, it was the opposite of that by making the investments we've made, we have really just brought this place back in a way that nobody imagined would be possible. And so when people say stuff like that to me about climate change, I have a lot of confidence that actually the stuff we're doing does matter, and the stuff we can do will matter, and that there is an opportunity still to make a big difference for Rhode Island, for the Earth, by taking all these actions at every level, including at the local level, that the places we protect and conserve here are a sanctuary for people, for wildlife, that we know even in Providence that areas that have forested cover on a hot sunny day in the summertime may be as much as 10 degrees cooler than areas that are paved over in blacktop. And so it's for all of us. It's not just for rich people that have summer homes on the coast. It's for everybody in cities and on the coast, and that it really serves a public benefit and a public purpose to do this. And so really that's the message of hope and inspiration that I can share, which is that at times like this, when it seems like the Earth is in crisis and so much is wrong and so much seems like it can't be changed, my own experience and it's more than anecdotal, it is empirical and it's scientific to see that when we give nature half a chance, it will respond in kind. And so that is, I know that, I'm confident of it, and that helps me to come to this with renewed spirit. So that's my story, and I wonder if others have thoughts on this topic of your Jewish faith in the environment, how you come to nature, how you enjoy nature, maybe some of the things that you've seen or observed over the course of your lifetime. And I would invite thoughts on that. And if there aren't, I'm going to talk about some other things, but go ahead. If you have some your own story to share, I'd love to hear it now.
Yeah, thank you, John. I mean, I think that. Can you hear us? Yeah, thank you. That was very inspiring and important. It seems to me that is, coronavirus aside, the environment is the existential, as most thinking people realize, the existential issue of our time. And I'm glad to hear you're optimistic and that your experiences are in some ways, keep you optimistic, or keep you optimistic. I sometimes lose faith, but it's you're right. You can't. You have to continue. Yeah, there's no other avenue, no other road. So thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Other thoughts? I want to share with the virus, a story of today and one of the challenges that I'm facing, just to give you a sense of the kinds of decisions we have to make. This morning, I was on a call with the director of environmental management and the director of the Audubon Society and of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, that together, between the state, Audubon, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we own and manage most of the public natural areas in the state, nature preserves and parks. And we have, there's been this message that that we need to stay home whenever possible, and only go out if it's critical to get food or medicine or to work, right? And so the flip side of that message, though, has been it's okay to go outside and get exercise and walk. And up until now, the message has also been that our parks and our nature preserves are open, and we were encouraging people to come out and use them. Unfortunately, that changed today. And so, over the weekend, like on Saturday, we were all sort of inundated with calls from concerned neighbors to our nature preserves that people were overusing them, that they were, parking out of the nature preserves, and the cars were on neighbors' properties, and big groups of people coming in and not following distancing, not being respectful. And so, and the state parks just got mobbed, like the Goddard Park and a number of the state parks and beaches were Lincoln Woods, Colt State Park had thousands of people coming out on the nice day. And so the governor made the decision today and announced today that the parks are going to have to close. And so for us, that leaves us in a jam, because we have these 20 nature preserves, and if the parks are closed, we can't, it's going to be hard because people may overrun our preserves, and that's a real difficult outcome, so whereas ordinarily our message is for people to come out and use these places and enjoy them, and they've always done it in a respectful way. Now I have a dilemma about that and what to do, and I'm worried. I'm consulting with our team and with our partners about what to do, but it looks like we may have to close the nature preserves for the time being, which is really painful for me, because people need nature now more than ever. And I hope that one of the silver linings of this whole catastrophe is going to be that people have a more informed appreciation, recognition of how great these places are and how important they are to our lives and as Rhode Islanders and as people. And so it may be that we have to let that go temporarily and close them and look after that. But this won't be forever. And on the other side of this, I'm hopeful that people will come back with a renewed appreciation for why these places are important, why we need to invest in and protect them for ourselves and for future generations. So that's the news of the day, or the dilemma of the day, is what to do with all of our nature preserves.
Well, it makes sense to try and preserve the preserves. I mean, you can't have them overrun and people getting sick. It's a tough decision, but it certainly seems like a very logical and reasonable one.
Yeah. And so I've been encouraged. Kids have been home now for a couple of weeks, and we've just been really enjoying our walks together every day. I have this little this camping stove that I have that uses twigs. It's called a firebox stove. And so you put twigs in the bottom. It looks like an aluminum box, like one of those fire starter things. It folds up, and so you put twigs in the bottom of it and a little bit of paper, and you can make a fire, and you can put a pan on it and cook on it. So we've done that camping in the past. So what we're doing is we go out and we gather twigs, just walking down the streets, and we pick up twigs, fill shopping bags with them. We come back and we make a little tiny fire in the backyard. And so it's just been a joy, it's been a joy to be able to do that and to see through the eyes of my 11 and 13-year-old that there is so much beauty in it. And there's, so I see the divine in it. And we're so fortunate to live in a place like this where we can walk in places right from our home. I live not too far from the temple. I live on Stadium Road, which is right near Brown Stadium in Emmanuel.
Oh,
And so we see it here, and seeing is one of the things, like even here, noticing the air is cleaner, there's less traffic, you hear the birds more, you see rabbits and squirrels and everything coming out. And so being mindful of that and taking the time to see and value and appreciate that is a silver lining that I hadn't anticipated from all of this, but it's one that I value even more. And I just take stock every day. Is my family okay? Are we all right? And as long as they are, to me, that is like a blessing and something to be grateful for.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Good luck.
Yeah. And to
If you
all
need any
too.
twigs, Brenton Avenue,
Okay, I'll be coming that way. We do
a lot.
collected them. Good to know. Good to know.
Well, I walked through Swan Point Cemetery today, which was, I don't want to sound like it was ominous, but it's a beautiful place to stroll through. And, I guess you don't look on what the downside of a cemetery is, but the beauty of that location. So,
Isn't it? Yeah.
Can anybody hear? Ooh, John?
Hi. We're getting a feedback from you there.
Yeah,
we'll
is
mute
it
so you
better,
can-
John? Now I can't hear you. It's weird. I can't
Go
hear,
ahead.
I can only hear you
I muted
coming from
myself.
my phone.
I muted myself, and so you won't have the feedback.
Oh,
but Go
okay.
ahead. I can hear you. Go ahead.
So I found Gina's announcement really confusing because she said she was going to close the beaches and parks, but then said you could walk on the beaches and you can walk in the parks, but you can't drive there. So to me, it felt like a very confused and inconsistent message. So I would love to know what's the real deal.
Yeah. Thanks, Nancy. I had recommended to Janet Coit, the Director of Environmental Management, to clarify the stay-at-home order. And the way I would read it is stay-at-home order means you stay at home unless you are going out for essential needs, food, medicine, or to work. And if you want to go outdoors for recreation, you can do that locally, meaning walking or biking. That's the way I read it. And so I urged the governor to clarify that, to say you cannot drive to these places, but if you
Right.
can walk.
That's
And she didn't take my advice yet. I tried today, and so I'm going to try again. We have another call with the state and federal agency heads on Thursday morning. And so there's a new press conference every day. So I think we need to clarify that, because that, it seems to me like if you're walking or biking, it shouldn't be a problem. But if you are driving to these places, it doesn't seem right, because I would love to drive with my family to a state park or beach on a beautiful day, but I don't feel right about that right now. It doesn't feel like the right thing to do.
right.
Because if everyone does it, then it's not okay. But if, so it just feels like it's inconsistent. I agree. And it's been confusing in terms of the messaging. So I'd like some clarification on that. But the way I just articulated it is the way I am living it, and the way I'm communicating it.
And
out from the nation.
that's what we're doing too. I'm lucky enough to live right near Squantum now. We moved from the east side. So yesterday I walked 6 miles. Today I walked 6.5 miles on the bike path. Socially isolated.
It's like Linda.
Awesome. Yeah, you're going to get fit and
That's my
healthy.
goal.
Yeah, fit and healthy could be a gold lining from this.
Yes.
what's Ken doing? Is he walking also, or?
Ken is walking not as much as I am. And I was at the gym. I was at the JCC 6 days a week before this. So the exercise part is not new, but I'm doing the walking more for my brain than for my body, because it's the only time that I'm feel all calm is when I'm outdoors in nature. Ken is walking, but he's probably walking 2.5 miles,
Oh,
maybe.
It's good.
But
good.
it's good. Yep.
Good.
And happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sarah, what are you doing with the kids?
Unmuting myself, but the dog is barking, so I'll do it briefly.
Sorry, that's Pippa. I'm walking Pippa a lot, and the kids are biking a ton. I'll look forward to seeing the towbacks in Swan Point Cemetery. John, we saw turtles. We did some turtle gazing in the pond in Swan Point. There's an incredible amount of nature there, and also a lot of bird watching and enjoying watching the watching things bloom. Really, that's been a huge and
Right.
beautiful part of the last couple of weeks. If there's an upside, it's actually taking the time to notice what's different every single day as we go on our walks. So
It's true. Yeah.
We've been walking, my husband and I, trying to take a walk every day, and we've been going to the different, we're in Massachusetts, but right over the line, but we've been going to arboretums in the area and discovering places we never knew existed, and we're really enjoying. We were watching tadpoles at one of them, and it was great. It was really fun.
Great.
I promised a photo of my dad and a striped bass. Here's one from last summer with my son.
Oh,
And that-
wow.
Wow.
Oh, my
that is-
God.
That's just in front of the Squantum Club is where we were. So way up the Providence River, like
Wow.
by the Thurbers Avenue curve. So
And
That's
you
what-
caught that. I mean, you actually caught that.
Dad caught it.
If-
Dad
is
and Mom
that-
caught it. Yeah.
And John, is that edible? I mean, is it fishable,
Yeah.
fishable waters? Did you guys?
Yeah. So we do. So the deal with that is these are migratory fish. So they come in from the ocean, they leave. And so in the tidal waters, there aren't like place-based restrictions on where you can keep and eat fish. It's a size-based restriction. And so with striped bass, there's guidance that you shouldn't eat too much of it, basically like 2 meals a month type of thing. If
Is it mercury or something else?
yeah, it's PCBs generally in
Uh-huh.
striped bass that are people concerned with it, but I mostly throw them back, but we definitely take some to eat. And you know,
Yeah.
if you take them from up there, it's still not perfect water quality, so we would just be careful to cook it thoroughly, and then that would kill any bacteria or that sort of thing.
And-
But generally on that, I feel like in moderation, eating local fresh seafood that we catch is really good for us in so
Right.
many ways. And it's great for the kids to participate in it and to see where the food comes from, and it made, like, my daughter used to be like super picky about that and would only eat, you know, wouldn't her idea of exotic was if the macaroni and cheese and the hot dogs touch. But then she got to see her mother reel in one of those striped bass and say, "Oh, mommy's fish is so beautiful. Can I taste that?"
And can I
And you're like-
send my 27-year-old daughter to you to get retrained in food consumption? But could we just briefly, John, look macro rather than micro? Because I'm hearing that one of the side benefits of this worldwide pandemic is China's skies are getting bluer. So could you talk a little bit about the extent you think are we slowing down the global warming, or are we just having a blip in improving the pollution dynamic? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, Nancy. I've been reading about that too. Dolphins up in the Venice canals and the water running clear, you know, more than, I think I saw an article, something like we're 30% less in terms of our carbon emissions globally than we were last year at this time, which is on track with like the climate targets that we're setting for the future.
Except what Trump did today with the rollback.
Yeah,
Unfortunately-
to the chagrin of our glorious leader.
Unfortunately, it is temporary, and that's just going to come right back. And there've been some, you know, like the gutting of emission standards, I think, is a really, really bad idea, obviously, and other things that have happened. So I just feel it. But
I'm going to call you from myself.
in terms
Hi.
of the overall message on climate that this gives is that it's attainable, that it's achievable, that we will see ecological benefits in a really short time if we make some of these changes. Is kind of just like what I was saying about the river. You know, it doesn't take 20 years for you to see nature recover, and you don't have to have 100% reduction to see that. So
Right.
like what the Narragansett Bay experience is that when you make a few incremental changes, nature responds more than in kind. And we see that happening as a result of this, worldwide catastrophe. Unfortunately, it is temporary. I don't think the lessons are being learned, but that's part of my hope, is that as we come through this, and I'll point out the Nature Conservancy is nonpartisan, and we're proud that we have a deep support in the red states, and people really understand and appreciate, even some conservative Republicans, appreciate nature and conservation in terms of like keeping land and keeping places the way they want for their children. And so we've been able to lean into that and to use that politically to our advantage to help advocate for some good things that have happened. So even under this administration, and recently, for example, just a few weeks ago, we got permanent funding for the Land Water Conservation Act, which is a major piece of federal legislation to permanently fund, federal fund land and water conservation projects, including some of the ones that funded the preserves we've created in Rhode Island. So even in the face of, disdain for in some of environmental policies and ecological protection, we're able to navigate it in a way that secures really positive things for the future. And so I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. It's bad in terms of both the federal government and the lack of general appreciation for this work and for science and for civil servants and for experts. Maybe that's one of the silver linings. We can only hope and pray that on the other side of this, people may recognize that scientists and medical professionals and career civil servants know what they're talking about and are trying to do good for the world. May my lips to God's ears, right?
Thank you, John.
Other thoughts, comments? I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Thank you so much for being here and for staying with us, and thank you to the rabbi and to the temple for what you're doing. This is really important. It's going to get us all through this, and we'll be stronger for it on the other side.
John, thank you. And
Thank
thanks
you,
for
John.
being, I'm sorry, there goes Pippa again. Thank you for being here. One of the most beautiful things I think is seeing all of us, if you click sideways here, in the same virtual room. And I love getting to hear your story. I think that it's really wonderful that we all get to know each other in this process and learn about all you do to improve our world and Tikkun Olam, and how we can continue to learn from you in the future. And I'm hopeful that this is a jumping off point, that this is there's a way that we can continue to learn from each other even as we move forward from this incredibly crazy moment in time. So thank you so much for sharing your Torah with us today, and just thrilled to look out and see everyone. Thank you for coming, and if you or somebody has Torah you want to share, just let us know. We're looking, 4 p.m. seems to be a good end of the day time when we get lots of people out, but we would love to hear your Torah as well. I know, Judy, that's your line. I'll let you jump in.
Oh, that was good. You did it for me today. I had unmuted. I was ready, but that's great. Thank you.
I just want to add,
Thank you.
thank you for everybody, and especially to John and the synagogue folks. Could we do a 5-minute Zoom at some point on how to have fake backgrounds? Could we have a Zoom instructional on how to put a fake background up?
I'd be glad to do that.
Mosley is a wizard at Zoom. Maybe would it be helpful to do a how to Zoom?
Well, I know how to Zoom, but probably a lot of people don't.
Okay, so we can definitely do that, and I can really quickly tell you, Nancy, how. If you go to video, where it says stop video.
Where would I find stop
On the
video?
bottom
Of
left.
your screen,
Oh, stop video. Yep.
a little arrow,
Uh-huh.
and then you click the arrow, and it says choose a virtual background.
Oh, very cool.
And then you can upload them. So look, you can have Judean desert, the Mediterranean Sea, the Galilee, Jerusalem,
Cool.
Providence, Guatemala, You can choose the picture that you want or use their picture.
Uh-huh.
But you can upload as many as you'd like.
Well, it says choose virtual background, but I don't, and it says virtual background, but I don't see my choices.
No,
You may
it
have
says
to
add. See the ad?
Oh, yes, the plus sign.
Yeah.
To add your own pictures,
Oh, okay.
So
right,
you,
Uh-huh. I think so.
Bethel?
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
here's some nature for you too.
Okay. Thank you guys so
Thanks a lot,
much.
John.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I guess I'm gonna have to start wearing makeup again.
It's terrific.
And just to let everybody know, I will be accepting presents as a 6-month period, until the coronavirus is out of the picture. Thanks.
How do you get those pictures up there? I want to do that. How do you
Yeah,
load the
it's-
pictures?
It's
Oh,
not
it
working
says,
for me,
when
but-
you go to the choose virtual background, there's a plus sign on the top of the different pictures and you add from your photo books.
Oh, it
Okay, so
has
we
to
have
be
to have
from
somebody
your
from the
own.
photo.
Okay.
It has to
Yeah.
be from your own
Thanks.
All right,
photo.
we're gonna work
Is that
on
what you're
this.
Thanks,
saying?
everybody. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jill,
Thanks,
call
John.
me if you need help.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
Say
Thank
hello
you
to
so
Kate.
much.
John.
Bye.
Isn't that great?